Okay, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Planning Board meeting of July 6, 2021. Would you all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Roll call of members present. Michael Croto, Chair.
Kate Stevens, Vice Chair.
Curtis Sampson, member.
Ron Stevens, member.
Kimberly Queenan, Selectman's Rep.
Okay. James is not going to be with us this evening. Joan is not here. We do have Jay Minkara from Nashua Regional Planning Commission with us. Good evening, Jay. First off, public input on non-agenda items not on the agenda for this evening. Is there any members of the public who have anything to add on non-agenda items? Seeing nobody in the audience, I will then close public input on non-agenda items. The first order of business tonight has been moved. This application, well, actually, it's an application by Rennie Thoreau, trustee of the Thoreau Litchfield Realty Trust, 311 and 315 Charles Bancroft Highway. Purpose of application is lot line adjustment between map 15 lot 6 and map 15 lot 6-2. No additional lots are created. If the aforementioned application is accepted, notice is hereby extended to application approval, consideration, and or continuations to a date certain as required. The applicant tonight is requesting that the application be moved to August 3rd, 2021. So they will not be here this evening.
You might want to make a motion.
So I would entertain a motion to move this to the August 3rd agenda.
Motion.
I have a motion.
Second.
I have a second. Do I have discussion? All right. All those in favor of the application being moved to August 3rd, 2021, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, abstained, motion passes 5-0-0. Thank you. Number 2, zoning and regulatory changes. We are having a workshop this evening, and I'll let Jay lead us off.
Really, just a couple of things I was going to pass on. So the first one, this is the chart that Kate emailed around to everybody, which was a lot of
Thank you
work.
for printing that out. That
Thank you,
make-
Kate.
It's
I
easier to
figured it just
look
might
at.
be easier to print it, but obviously people could have it on their screen as well. And the second item is passing around. So really, I think this is obviously an open workshop. So really, it's what anybody wants to bring up or talk about when it comes to zoning. I mean, I'll just throw out a couple of things that we have talked about. So the first draft language that you see in front of you was a suggestion to look at how we could limit warehousing and distribution facilities in the town. And basically that was by size. So I'm happy to go through this and kind of talk about what I was thinking. But there have been other issues that have also come up related to zoning. And this is really where I think the chart that Kate put together is so helpful. And that was really centered around permitted uses in the northern commercial zone is what really was what came up specifically, but permitted uses really generally. I'll touch on, if we want to go through the proposed amendments to limit warehousing distribution, we could probably touch on some of those.
Mhm.
But I think there's been a lot of concerns out there, and other issues that have come up have been looking at ways that the town could perhaps do more to protect its rural character, or to protect its agricultural heritage. So those are kind of conversations that have come up over the past several months. So I don't know if you want me to dive into the warehousing and distribution one or not. If that's where we want to start, or do we want to
Well,
start?
it's a workshop, so sure. If you would be.
So now I'm even going to have to remember my thinking. So really this is, I mean, not surprisingly, the planning board spent a lot of time following the distribution center that was recently approved in Hudson. So needless to say, that's really what brought this to the forefront. And I think as everybody can recall, that's a really enormous facility that was approved, over 2 million square feet. I don't know that we're looking at anything like that here, but needless to say that generated a lot of concern, particularly around traffic. And so the thought was, we do have a fair amount of undeveloped land in town where presumably warehousing and distribution facilities of that magnitude could perhaps be developed. Should we be looking at a way of limiting or controlling that? So that's really what this is intended to do. And it does it in a couple of ways. So just kind of looking at the logic of the way it's laid out, it addresses multiple districts. You're going to see, and I think as most people can appreciate, that is mostly in agricultural use now. And I will say, and this has contributed to some of the conversation around the zones, Southwest Commercial District was created at a time when the town was planning in anticipation of circumferential highway. So a lot of the permitted uses generally in that district come from that time. And just for memory's sake, this was the path of the circumferential highway right along the bottom here. So what was envisioned is there was going to be an interchange at 3A. This was going to be a major interchange, and we were going to see, truly significant development. So nevertheless, so we've got the Southwest Commercial District. So the first change that you're going to see is we've got the opening paragraph, which is permitted uses. And then, kind of 2 lines up from the bottom, what you can see in strikeout is we say what's allowed and encouraged, and then we say large shopping type uses such as department stores and here exceeding 20,000 square feet are not permitted. And uses that are not listed below are not permitted. I struck that, and the reasons why I struck that will be obvious, hopefully. No other change to the permitted uses at this point. Although I will say when we get into a conversation around permitted uses in the zone, I think that there's some things that are really worth talking about. Might as well flag them now. I didn't propose them to, but just as an example, D, civic centers, what does that mean? That actually meant something like the Verizon Arena at that time because people weren't sure. There was talk about building a venue of that size in the region somewhere. And there was actually a hope by some in Litchfield that this would be the location because we're going to have the new highway. So anyway, a lot of the uses here may or may not make sense under current conditions, but I'll leave that alone for now.
May I ask a question?
Yeah.
Is that from Page Road, Gilchrist, all the way down, right?
Basically, yes.
So just so you know the visual, from
Yes.
Page Road all the way to Hudson.
Page Road, yeah, Page Road down on the west side, of 3A.
That's all.
So moving on to the second page. So what the intent here is basically, first of all, to allow as a permitted use warehousing. You can see it under Q. I put in here warehousing of goods as an accessory use to uses that are permitted. So just to be clear, if you are a permitted use and you're storing product on site, that's a permitted use. That's not a distribution facility. That's storing your own stuff. So that was just added to make that clear. Then what I added here was a new section called prohibited uses. So that is a change. Historically, we have not listed out prohibited uses. I did that for a couple of reasons. So first of all, the first one is warehousing, fulfillment or distribution facilities greater than 150,000 square feet. So obviously that means you can have one that's smaller. And then, as I noted previously, I struck the language on large regional shopping centers only because I moved it here. And any use not listed above, I moved it here. So basically, the only substantive change is a prohibition against warehouses, fulfillment, or distribution facilities greater than 150,000 square feet. 150,000 square feet is not magic. That was I looked at a range of different, because there are, I should back up a little bit. You probably wouldn't be surprised to see that one of the ways communities that are trying to limit these types of facilities are doing it is by size. So I saw a range out there, some as small as 75,000 square feet, some 300,000 square feet, 500,000 square feet. So I put in 150,000. That seemed to be a reasonable number, but there's no magic to it. So that's something else we could think about. But just for reference, a warehousing and distribution facility that was recently proposed in town conceptually happens to be about 150,000 square feet. So that'll give you a reference as to what that kind of looks like. So again, whether we want to do that or not, that was really the thinking that went behind this. And it's simply in this district a prohibited use. And the reason for that is that when you look at this district, there is no highway access. If you're going to put a distribution facility here, that traffic is going to go up 3A. That's just the reality. And so making this more restrictive, and perhaps it could even be more so, but that's really the rationale, it's a matter of mitigating traffic on 3A.
So do you want to go through the entire thing first, or
It's up to you.
like should we do back and forth each section?
It's
How's
up,
that?
whatever the board feels comfortable doing.
Notes,
Don't
yeah.
mind certainly going through it.
'Cause
But
my first thought on that is that I would just limit that to be way smaller, at least in the southern district, because just like you said, it's just promoting like the highway access to be all the way up through town. Where LKQ I think is about 36,000 square feet, I believe. So I
Right,
wouldn't
right.
even want anything bigger than that, I would think.
We could
Um,
certainly drop that number down, and there's a logic to dropping that number.
But that's just one of my first thoughts. Was, and something that Joan had said earlier was a big reason why all of that is undeveloped is because it's zoned for commercial, not industrial on the west side of 3A there. So if all of a sudden now we say warehouses greater than, and then now we can do warehouses that are less than, I guess right now you're allowed to do warehouses greater than,
Right.
right? But it's just something to consider. Maybe we actually reduce that in that area to avoid a larger warehouse being built in the southern part of town.
And I think that's definitely defensible, I think.
And a civic center would bring traffic too.
Oh, yeah. We'll come back to
Just go down
that.
this
one.
list and say, wait a
Yeah, I
minute.
mean, there's definitely a couple to come back to there that we don't want to think about, but I mean, and I would agree, making that a smaller number would make
Yeah,
sense.
that's true.
Okay, how far up 3A does the southwest?
Just up to Page Road, just before Page Road.
And this is the section only to the west of 3A, right? To the
That's right.
east
It
is
doesn't
southern-
address
yeah,
exactly.
commercial
It's
industrial.
only to the west of 3A, between 3A and the river.
So what if somebody had 10 acres, subdivided it into 2 acres each, and then put building, same company, just 5 different square warehouses or whatever.
If you,
I don't know if they'd bother
contiguous.
to do that.
you,
would they?
you
guess they
could,
could.
but you couldn't, you'd still be subject to the size limit. And realistically, that's not efficient.
Yeah.
They don't, I mean, if you're a real distribution facility, it needs to be under one roof.
Well, it won't be distribution, because that 704, I don't think let them in, right?
So you're thinking no warehousing at all?
No, warehousing, I'm
Okay.
continuous. If all of a sudden somebody buys a big track. and
You
they just
could.
Put different buildings, is that something the board wants? All I'm asking. I'm just trying to
Right.
think ahead.
Right, I know.
It's definitely a
How
thought.
I mean, I
People
guess
don't
any
use
way
it.
you think about it, if businesses are going to start developing up in that area because the area is prime for businesses, whether it's the same business that's every, couple 100 feet or different businesses, traffic is traffic, so.
Well, and truck traffic is, I think, more what people are more concerned about
Yeah,
limiting.
the rate, yeah.
So if it's, like you said, more businesses, but it's bringing more cars in, it's maybe people aren't so excited about that either, but it's not a semi coming
Yeah,
down.
the semis are what's going to cause the wear and tear on the roads and everything.
So it's not a distribution. I'd be nervous about that game. People
Right.
trying to get around it, and we'll put one down there and one in the northern part of town. I would just, again, the traffic,
Yeah. It's less likely only because the whole point of a distribution facility is bringing it into one place and then
Mhm.
distributing it from
Setting
there.
it up, Right.
You worded it to say it's not a distribution. It's a,
I mean, it's
Yeah,
a
just
workshop.
yeah,
We can put in no
accessory use.
warehousing too.
Yeah. I put them all in.
We could say no warehousing at all. We could propose it, as a.
So that is the other alternative, because under Q, it says it's allowed as an accessory use to a permitted use. But you could consider not allowing it at all
Mhm.
if it's, as a principal use. So
What do
that
we-
is another law.
What do
There
we
you go.
already have in town that's considered warehousing? I guess you'd have to kind of see what we've already got in town that we classify as warehousing, because we could be saying in the Southwest District that we're not going to allow warehousing, but just a couple miles north, you have a building that's not classified warehousing, but we look at it as warehousing. I guess is we'd have to look at our definition and understand what we're classifying as warehousing.
Yeah, I mean, we do have, a smaller distribution facility in town. The other issue when we get to, when we get to really talking about uses is we don't define self-storage units. So those have been allowed as warehousing. They're really not warehousing. They're a completely different thing. But that's kind of how they got in under the door. But so something else that we might want to do as we think about permitted uses is actually defining self-storage units, because that's really more of an almost retail type use, or individuals are renting them. So that's something else that we just might want to clarify. So I'll move on, but we can come back to it.
Okay.
So northern commercial zone. This is set up very similarly in thinking. First line, again, I took out uses not listed, and that gets moved to the end. Here, it says warehousing and distribution facilities, 75,000 square feet and under would be a permitted use. There's a logic to this. Under J, you see the term transportation terminals. I did strike that. And the reason I propose striking that is because a transportation terminal could be defined, a distribution facility could be considered a transportation terminal. I don't think that, but the term transportation terminal is often used to mean a logistics hub, and logistics hubs are distribution centers. So that's why I propose striking it.
Do bus stops fall under transportation terminal?
I don't think so.
Okay. I
But
just
it-
don't want
it's
to
kind of a
eliminate bus
broad-
stops.
It would be a broad category. 'Cause
It's
it
a
could
broad
almost-
category. It's also it's an odd term, but
Yeah.
that's why I proposed striking it, was for that reason. If we're concerned about, a bus stop or a transit facility, we could allow those specifically as a permitted use.
I wouldn't want to disallow bus stops, I guess.
think we-
I don't know. I guess it would be a bus company would come before the board.
Well, it's like you got in Londonderry and Dairy where you have the Boston,
Boston Express.
No, I'm
Express.
not. Yeah, I don't think that we should try to have a massive parking lot. I'm talking like just like the
Like the Mart
a
buses that go
bus
from
stop,
stores,
like a standard city bus stop.
Oh,
where the bus is going to go from area to area to hit Kmart and then to hit shop, Stop
Yeah,
and Shop, and then
you
it comes
see up
back
and
to
down,
you know,
any major street in that.
those are usually in the public right of way, so that's usually
Okay.
not a zoning issue.
Okay, all right. I just wanted to make sure we didn't
Right.
say that's all of a sudden not allowed in Litchfield for some reason.
Right. Or school buses.
The last
Can't have
thing,
school buses.
right? The last thing we need is less public transportation.
So now what's proposed under the northern commercial zone, and just so everybody's clear on what we're talking about, the northern commercial zone is the commercial area all the way up, obviously to the north, shown on that map in red. And so under this section, under this ordinance, we have a number of conditional uses: gasoline sales, auto service and repair, fast food, etc. And I propose here adding an E. Warehouse fulfillment and distribution facilities greater than 75,000 square feet, but less than 150,000 square feet. So not to exceed 150. So the concept here is that we are being more permissive. Right now, warehousing and distribution facilities are not allowed in this district at all. So this suggests saying we are going to allow them. They're allowed by right up to 75,000. So the smaller one that we have, 36,000 square feet, is allowed by right. A larger one would be allowed up to 150, but that would be a conditional use. And there's some criteria. So first, that the building would have to be set back not less than 250 feet from 3A, and that's mainly for the purpose of trying to control the visual impact. Landscape buffers have to be provided, And I mean, it's fuzzy, I know, but it can't create undue traffic congestion or hazard. And that would be, needless to say, in the eye of the planning board. So fuzzy, I admit, but that's the criteria. So it is more permissive, and that's a question as to whether or not we feel those facilities should be allowed.
That northern limit section, is that right there? Does that also include Albuquerque and 3A right there on the corner right by the golf course?
So it does, right in this area here,
Hmm.
Colby Road.
Yep.
And so basically all this area here.
Because there's a lot of area right
There's a
there
lot
that
of
could
area there.
very easily be turned into.
And
Buildings.
the logic, again, whether we want to do this or not, but the logic is that is closer to the highway.
Hmm.
So it's more viable. And realistically, that's where most of that truck traffic would go is north. So again, obviously, we can discuss whether that's something that we want to see or not. But nevertheless, that's what I'm showing here. Once again, transportation terminals. I'm sorry. That's moving on to the next section. And then again, we've got a prohibited uses section, and it prohibits facilities larger than 150,000 square feet. And then once again, any use not listed above. I didn't really say this, but part of the logic in expressly putting something under prohibited usage, which again, historically we've not done. And historically we've not done that. And that's kind of been the convention, is that if it's not listed as a permitted use, it's a prohibited use. The reason why I thought it made sense to be explicit is that, having been around zoning boards many, many years, and sitting on the zoning board now, the argument is frequently made that at the time this ordinance was created, we didn't contemplate this use, mini storage, whatever the use is. So that's a reason why you should grant relief. So if you really don't want something, I think saying it expressly is a clear signal that, yeah, we did think about it and we really don't want it. So that's the other reason why I did that. Nevertheless, I'm going to keep going, but we can come, obviously.
I have one question on that
Go.
northern part. What about Spooky World? Where does that fall into? I just want to make sure they're in a category here.
Yes, a spooky world, kind of,
I see
once again.
entertainment.
So spooky world is another one of these things that we might want to think about. What do we define? It's spooky world. It's Mel's Funway. Going back to the list, since we are jumping around, I consider that commercial recreation.
Where do you see that?
Like an
page?
amusement, like.
Right.
Amusement.
What number is that?
It's not.
951?
Well,
Oh, it's
that-
not there. Okay.
It's
good.
not there.
That's why.
Again,
why I'm
that's
asking.
another one of these uses that we've allowed, but
I wanna
it's
make sure
not.
they're in there. Right?
It's not clearly in there. So yeah, that's another thing to think about.
Spooky World then.
So when we come back to uses, that's definitely one to make note of, is that commercial recreation really isn't something, and it's a very different thing. So, okay. Moving on to the Southern Commercial Industrial Service District. So now we're all the way back down to the bottom corner of town, and we are now on the east side of 3A in this area here, and that was contemplated as more of an industrial district.
Jay, can I ask a question
Yeah.
before you go on to the next one? Where it says 75, greater than 75, but no more than 150.
Right.
Why does it have to be greater than 75?
Because less than 75 or less is allowed by right.
Okay.
So if you go back to
B.
B, right. So if you go back to right after the beginning of the Northern Commercial Industrial Service District.
Right.
So that's it. In bold, you'll see and distribution 75 and under are allowed.
Okay. Thank you.
So moving on down to this district, but anybody stop me at any point. Again, familiar theme in this district. Once again, now currently I'll say warehouses are allowed in this district. So here, there's the limitation of 75 square feet or under is allowed. I did the same thing with permitted uses. As you can see, I did the same thing with transportation terminals. Turning the page, once again, it's proposed to be allowed between 75 and 150 as a conditional use with the same criteria that you saw before. And the logic in being more liberal on this side of the road than the other is that warehousing is already allowed. The logic in not being more liberal is same thing we've already talked about before. There's only one way really that truck traffic is going to flow. So does it really make sense to be more liberal? And then going on to the prohibited uses, same as that you saw, same rationale. So that's really the thinking. And pretty much you see the same themes kind of running through all of these.
What do we consider the yellow?
This?
All the yellow in the middle.
Up top, residential.
Oh, that's all residential.
It's all residential. Okay.
And then where you see the slightly different shade, that's the portion of the residential district that allows multifamily.
Okay.
So yeah, we have a lot of residential.
The last one, the SCI, I guess it's called the Southern Commercial Industrial.
Yeah.
Again, I have to take time to read this thing, but
Right.
what was I thinking to go in there? Like business offices, 3-story business offices or something, because it's near Route 102.
Yeah, business offices.
It's not like an entertainment center where they're all coming in by the thousands and they're leaving. So I'm not saying a Fidelity or a small college campus, I don't know, but because it's not trucks that have to get to the highway, right? It's people, but they could really get off exit 4 and come down 102.
Yeah. So, I mean, R&D facilities,
Where's that?
professional office. So if you're on Southern Commercial Industrial Service District,
Yeah.
I didn't number these unfortunately, but it would be your second to last page.
Second to last.
You
page.
see section 1001.
One. Yeah.
So we do allow professional offices.
Where's that?
That would be F.
Okay.
And we allow R&D facilities under D.
Yeah.
So I mean, theoretically, you could put that kind of professional office campus on that property.
What's the height requirement there?
I think,
We probably have a chart somewhere that says
I
this district
think
is
we're
this.
limited to 35 feet, but let me double check.
35 feet, so three and a half stories.
Let me double check.
Okay, no, that's all right. That's okay.
But I think, just to be sure.
The reason I brought it up is I'm always hearing that we don't have enough tax base in the town if we have businesses, and that's a whole argument whether it really contributes to your taxes going down or not. It's a separate economic conversation, but that would bring in different types of businesses. I think that area there.
Yeah, I mean, the challenge has always been access to the development of these areas, even for office. It's challenging. Usually your office campuses do want to be reasonably close to an interchange. So Fidelity wants to be at exit 10. Or if you look at the office park, say off of Amherst Street, exit 8, exit 7, even down by Spitbrook, exit 1. So usually there's exceptions, but that's usually that's kind of why we really haven't seen. Same thing when you go down to a lot of the other uses that we see here. Wholesale businesses, it's same challenge. Again, you want to distribute your product, so you want to be near a highway. Restaurants, you don't really have the through traffic, so you can have some restaurants in town that are going to serve mainly local, but there aren't a lot of commercial uses or industrial uses realistically that want to come into those locations. What we're seeing happen in the northern side of town is there's more interest because you've got better access. You're not right at the exit, but you're
But
close.
you're pretty close to it. Yeah.
And so you're close enough where it's reasonable And so that's really, that's where we're seeing
Mhm.
commercial development interest is north.
No, I agree to that. I just think, I'm trying to think of different businesses. If you want them here, who would come here?
My initial thought is things that involve trucks we want to keep towards the northern side. Things more like offices, and I would hope it wouldn't be something so large as Fidelity, but something it could be. We'd want more towards the southern side where it's going to be more like cars. Well, even a place like Fidelity would have a ton of cars coming in and out at the same time every day. But if it was like a
Oh, the Fidelity, yeah.
Yeah.
But like a business park.
business park, right, where it's a a dentist office and a doctor's office and things like that, where there will be more traffic, but it's not like concentrated at certain times or
Right.
anything like that. Maybe that wouldn't be, because we can't stop commercial development altogether and say, none of this is allowed.
Mhm.
But I would think that would be, we should encourage that more towards the southern side.
I agree.
And that might be what keeps the agriculture end up being more profitable for a longer amount of time. If it hasn't been developed yet.
So are we talking about like 102, that area? Is that what you're,
This area.
That's-
here.
or the more that?
I didn't really touch 102 or Highway Commercial.
Okay.
I didn't propose allowing warehousing there. We could certainly. My,
Yeah, I
my
would
sense
think
with
that.
102 was there really isn't a lot of new developable land there.
Mhm.
It's very small. I think.
It's very small. Now,
Right.
granted, this land here is zoned highway commercial, which is interesting, but it doesn't have any real access, and I think that's all publicly owned.
Is that the state that owns that?
I'm pretty sure that's state right now. I could be wrong. I'm pretty sure it is.
And then looking at, oh no, sorry, my computer shut down. Okay. I was just reading through the master plan in this chapter. I think it's chapter 6. Chapter 6, the economic development chapter has not been updated since 2002.
We should put that in the list.
Right.
Mhm.
Even then, it says the last paragraph of one of the sections is, it is the consensus of the EDWG project participants that if there's an attempt to direct future commercial development, it should focus on the northern Litchfield where increased land development activity is already underway. There's also an initiative underway by the selectmen to complete Albuquerque Avenue to the north. In addition, Manchester Airport expansion is underway just a few miles to the north, while construction of the circumferential highway in the south part of town has experienced numerous delays. So you can read the time that was written, but it even says try and concentrate it towards the north, and then the south was, I think, more focused towards commercial. That would have come with the highway. That's kind of where we're at. Okay.
Were you watching on TV? Were you watching on TV?
Do we want to go over the chart, or do we have more to talk
Sure.
about here?
You want to?
I don't want to move on too quickly either.
Unless, I did you have anything else?
It's your call.
Sorry. Go ahead.
I think it's like everything.
Do we have any extras of these?
it's almost like,
Over there?
So I went through all the zoning ordinances and put the permitted uses, the conditional use permits, the special exceptions and the not explicitly not permitted into a chart, because at least for me, by reading the lists, the same list, what seemed like the same list over and over again, just I couldn't keep it straight in my head what each section of town was kind of meant for. So that gave me a better idea of, like, you can kind of see it here where the southern, I I kept them the southern together and the northern together. The southern had more of the commercial side, and then the northern had a little more of the multifamilies. And yeah, I was actually surprised to see that the southern side of town had more permitted uses because we haven't really seen much development in that area. It's more been in the northern, like we've been talking about. But I just was hoping that that might help help some people. And one thing that I also saw was in the highway commercial district and the southern commercial district, we do have mixed use allowed, commercial residential. And I'm not sure if, like you said, commercially is really viable to be built by itself. So maybe to encourage, if we wanted to encourage any development in the southern area, then that commercial residential, expanding that area might be a possibility. And that mixed use was, let me find it. I just circled it. It was defined as a maximum of one residential unit may be developed in conjunction with a commercial use. The residential unit shall be accessory and subordinate to the use of the lot for commercial purposes. Minimum lot size shall be 1 acre, and septic systems must be designed and sited to adequately handle all the waste from both the commercial and residential units. It's in southern.
That's pretty limiting as mixed use goes. That's pretty
Mhm.
limiting.
It is.
Was a back page?
It's very
Jeez, I
long.
was just going through the first page.
There's a lot of things here. But that just gave at least to me, it gave me a better idea of what types of things were allowed. And I tried to group them together where all the residential things are on the first page. I don't think they're numbered, but the first page is where it has single family residences at the top. Then it goes into farming, and that's permitted everywhere except for agriculture. There was definitely a lot of times where I think it meant it allowed the same thing, but the wording was slightly different. So we could definitely do a little cleaning up there. So I had to separate those out because some of the agricultural, it was in the residential area, was the kind of larger agricultural production was not allowed in the residential area.
And there may be some conflicts.
Same with especially with automobile service and repair. There was a lot of conflicting things about, it's a conditional use throughout, but then you can do the retail, and then you can also do accessory uses, including servicing and repair of machinery, permitted in the southern commercial. So there were some, especially around the automobile things, it sounded like things were kind of added in without necessarily checking where everything else was doing.
And I think also some different intents, whether they
Mhm.
were well articulated or not.
I think you're right.
Municipal uses are permitted everywhere.
And things like, yeah, that was even written out. I
Yeah.
thought was odd.
Is it-
Computer
it is odd.
services, why are we limiting that to the commercial industrial? Or maybe I'm interpreting computer services as like a repair shop, but maybe that's not what that's
30
intended.
years ago, that meant something really different.
Maybe it's, yeah, maybe a lot more people visited those.
It meant a production facility,
Okay.
more
all right.
so than a retail.
Mhm.
If you didn't have PCs, it wasn't a thing.
Okay. What else? Personal services and offices. That seemed like something that could be permitted throughout.
noted a couple have come up earlier that we don't call out things like self-storage units are not called out anywhere.
Mhm.
Where do they make sense? Commercial recreation. Not here.
They
Yeah,
also-
We'll add it. Huh?
Yeah, sure. You
Sure.
Please do.
So, Jay's absolutely right. When this was done 30 years ago, we did expect to have a circumferential highway. But that's true when the Southern District was done. Now, one thing that, when we're talking about office buildings and research and development, without sewer, none of that's ever gonna happen. And over the years, I've probably given the planning board $100,000 to try to do some studies, to no avail, nothing ever happened. Okay? The money gets spent, whatever, in engineering firms, but nothing ever happened. No one ever came up with an agreement with Hudson or Manchester for sewer. So without sewer, we're not gonna get, you need, if you're gonna do research and development, you gotta have water. You gotta use high volumes of water. So if we're not gonna look at that, then it's not gonna happen. Same thing with an office building. If you're gonna have an office building, you need a fair amount of water to service the people in that office building. And without sewer, chances of it happening are slim to none. I mean, do you agree, Jay? Disagree?
Yeah.
You know, so without sewer, it's probably not gonna happen. So you really have to look at the uses that can go. So when you look at Wilson's Farm, because I hope it stays farm forever, but fact of the matter, it is probably not gonna. So you have to look at what you're gonna allow out there. I mean, a mall, we don't need another mall. Do you want a solar farm out there? Would you rather see a solar farm? Maybe you need to permit a solar farm. I personally think solar farms are ugly. But there are people that would rather have those, you know, than something else. Do you allow housing in that district? Are you better off with housing than something else? Should the housing be allowed in both the commercial and in an overlay as a, what do you call it, special use, conditional use? So that, does it fit in the area? You know, something like that. We did this 30 years ago. I was on the planning board when we did it 30 years ago, and, you know, trying to have a vision of what's going to happen. Nothing's happening, but at least the good thing is it's still been found all that time. And then the piece in the middle that abuts where Albuquerque never got completed, that's owned by a couple developers. At some point along the way, something's going to get done out there. But again, they're not moving forward because there's no sewer. There's water, but there's no sewer. So you really have to look at what you can do. The northern commercial district, I probably own 50% of the land that's left to develop up there. There's very few uses that we could get a customer to put in. I mean, there isn't going to be any more churches. Brick and mortar, as far as malls and things like that, they're done. I mean, you know, you might get a strip mall, but just look at the convenience store we have. They have a hard time keeping that little place full. You know, so what are we going to allow? You know, I think it's Barron's wants to come in. I think that's the name of the company that wants to go, but they need a variance. I don't think they can get a variance because yet they've shot down other variances when it comes to, can you use the property for another use? And you can. So the zoning board may allow it, they may not allow it, but it's the same thing. You know, and that's set back from the road. No one's going to see it. Probably a good spot for it. You know, I'm not trying to change your thought on what you guys are doing, but we need uses that can happen, not what we'd like to see, something that can happen. And, you know, I have across from Hidden Creek, I had mini warehousing approved out there a long time, 10, 15 years ago. I don't know, I lose track of time, and a large office building. So I think it was 65,000 square foot office building, if I remember correctly. was approved. Never could get a taker because there's no sewer. So something on that, someday, I might never develop it, but someone's gonna develop it. And it needs, maybe it's a mixed use, maybe it's a mixture of housing and a couple small stores, maybe a restaurant, maybe a gas station. And I don't think we can take a lot of gas stations, but the whole northern end needs to kind of have all the same uses that you're gonna allow. To me, so that you can do something, but, you know, can't build another convenience store and a dress store is not gonna make it up there. There's gonna be another farmer's market, you know, I mean, the stuff that's in here just isn't gonna work today, plain and simple. I mean, it's to come up with other ideas and something that you can actually build.
Yeah, I agree. The only way you'd get a small shop like that would be if there was apartments above it,
Something, yeah.
because there's just not enough traffic. Either that, or like you said, the low,
Mhm.
low traffic industrial.
How far away is the sewer from the southern section there?
It's at the S turns about, on, just right at almost at the town line, probably a few thousand feet from the town line. It would take a pump station and it would,
And an agreement,
And what?
and an intermunicipal agreement.
and an intermunicipal agreement. Yeah. That's what it would take, and to get someone to take it. Over the years, I've tried to get someone to, because as a developer, I can't do it. It takes the town to do it. We can't do it. I tried funding it, and I don't remember who they hired for an engineer, but that was probably 10 years ago now, maybe something like that. That the last time I think I got between all the developers, I think we raised like 75,000, gave it to the town. Before that, we didn't, more. So over the years, it's been at least 100,000 that I've given.
That definitely does change the dynamic of the south side if that were brought in.
Oh, absolutely.
Change the use, change the ability to have other businesses coming in. So,
You mean the north side?
no, on this we were talking about the south.
Either one.
No, well, from Manchester, it would have to come from the north. It would be
Right.
the north.
I mean, either or, bringing sewer into either one of those is going
Wouldn't
to.
come from Hudson. Hudson doesn't have capacity at this point.
Oh, they don't.
Well, Hudson's sewer comes from Nashua. So they've got a limit and they're jealously guarding that limit at this point. So Hudson, I mean, the other option that could be out there is Merrimack.
Right. You make an agreement with Merrimack and they just go under the river.
Hmm.
It's just permits, but I mean, they just put the water main under the river.
Right.
Going directional boring under the river isn't impossible. It's not. With the new technology, you can
It's
do
a
it.
segue, but Merrimack does have capacity.
It just opens up a lot of opportunity if we're talking about not bringing in huge warehousing and stuff like that to bring in a lot of the business that the
That's-
gentleman was just talking about.
Mhm.
Sewer is huge. Restaurants, if you were talking about bed and breakfasts, motels, anything, hotels, anything like that, anything in either one of those sections, it's going to be a lot more beneficial to them if you're bringing that in.
Yeah, because you wouldn't get a hotel either.
We're not
You
gonna
you
see-
really want to get a lot of businesses in there.
Yeah.
Because the sewer itself is just too costly. I mean, the septic.
That's right.
The septic would be too.
Manufacturing also.
Mhm.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's why, I mean, a warehouse obviously doesn't have a, large sewer demand.
And that's what we're gonna get. We're gonna get warehousing.
Mhm.
And that's all we're gonna get unless we have sewer. I just don't see how.
I mean,
anything else-
it really does come down to if residents want to be able to reduce taxes because we're bringing businesses and you have to look at how you bring and attract businesses. And the only way you're going to attract businesses if you make the properties more valuable to them.
I think that's the fallacy, though, is we're not going to reduce taxes. It's not going to go down. We'll have more revenue.
More revenue. It wouldn't reduce taxes. I guess it would make it so you can use that as
So
income for the town, offset it,
Mm-hmm.
Well, you're fighting two battles. In the
Right.
Southern District, the battle you're fighting down there is access. There's not enough access down there. Where's the traffic gonna go? Up 3A to 102? Forget it. That's gonna be a disaster.
Hmm.
So you're never gonna get the traffic counts to make that work. You're not gonna put anything big employer in there without sewer and without access. So then the other thing, do you look at having a road go from where the circumferential would actually go to 102? Now, if you do something like that, now you've created access to 102, which is a limited access road that helps that situation.
Which we have some of the right of way for.
I think they have all the right of way to 102.
Yeah, part of it's the state, but yeah.
But-
Between the state and the town, that's right. Because the state was gonna put in something called Industrial Drive back in those days. That was gonna basically open up that land and connect for.
Where would that be connected?
So it's right,
Is that the end of Albuquerque or something?
you can actually kind of see there's a right of way here right now.
Mm-hmm.
That was supposed to be Industrial Drive. And that was supposed to, that was your Albuquerque extension.
Okay.
So Albuquerque was going to make a little swing. You can see that right away is here now.
Mhm.
And then that's why all these lots were bought up. It was going to swing through here. And so you would have had that connector through. We actually showed that in the master plan as a dashed line for future extension.
So I think we came in, or at least I came in looking at this, that southern commercial area, it's been lucky and it's been a good thing that has not been developed because we have all the
I agree.
farms and everything there. And so actually what started kind of this whole mess that I created for Jay was, or for all of us, was the Hudson Logistics Center going in and trying to figure out how to limit those massive warehouses, to try to keep warehouses like what we talked a little bit earlier. Nothing's been agreed upon or anything, but what I thought was keeping warehousing up towards the northern section towards the airport, so we limit that truck traffic on 3A, and maybe having small commercial development along the southern side. But I mean, ideally it would be the Board of Selectmen by the development rights of those lands or something. That was another part that I wanted to talk about tonight. I don't know how that happens, I guess, in town. Is it
Have to talk with
the Board of
you.
Selectmen
Well, first
goes,
let's-
or
Yeah, I mean, we're
Conservation?
looking at our existing, these are our existing.
Yes.
This is a current state analysis, so we're gonna go from here. And I think you bring up very good points about infrastructure.
Mhm.
Access, traffic, sewage, access to water. I didn't think of that coming in here tonight, so I appreciate that because that definitely makes you look at it very differently. Realistically is probably more the better word.
I mean, originally, I was putting my asphalt plant on the circumferential highway way back when, but all the people in Hudson got up arms and everybody went crazy. So we ended up in Londonderry. Was the best thing that happened to me because at the time I thought I had access right onto circumferential highway. And that was like, this was coming and it was gonna be a good location, but it didn't happen. And it's a good thing that I didn't put it there because I would end up moving it out of there because it wouldn't work.
Hmm.
The traffic wouldn't work. So that was a long time ago. That was 1986. So that's when that.
This project isn't gonna happen, circumferential highway, everything I'm hearing. The
Circumferential
last 20 years I've been in town, but
But I think to Rick's point, if we ever did want to pursue that Albuquerque extension, that's an opportunity that is there. There's actually a deed restriction on one of those properties that requires that when the land's transferred, that the right of way is dedicated to the town.
So I think in the southern area that you have to look at how you're going to get access to 102 before, because right now nobody's gonna propose much out there until there's good highway access. Because as soon as they do, you're either going to restrict them on paved road, or paved road's going to go crazy, or when Hudson gets the notification, they're going to go crazy on their end. So it's going to be nothing. you wouldn't have to worry about a big distribution center coming because they want to be on the highway. They want time is money, trucks, no different than if they built the circumferential highway. I've always said if they built it and put a toll on it, that would save money for like our company. We would jump on the toll all the time because to do that loop to come back probably costs us $40. If we're going across the toll and it's costing us $5, just it's a numbers game, but that's what it is. Just because of traffic or going through Nashua or getting around to get back to that point. So thinking about access is probably how you want to do that, and then come up with what you want to build out there. But figuring out a way to get access is pretty critical.
And we're gonna have a
Right.
third fight with the town of whether they want it developed or not.
Mhm.
I understand from a builder's point of view, absolutely, what you need to do it. Then we have to get the political will of the town to see if they would want it
But
as
if
well.
you want to leave the town the way it is, which I'm fine with that, then you have to allow housing out there. You got to let them do something. And if you're okay with housing out there, then, or a solar farm, if you're housing and solar farm, but that's me.
Or you could do a conservation open space or something.
I'm just, but
No, this is very valuable. Yeah.
that's what it all is. I mean, it's not, you got to figure out, that's what it is. It's,
Yeah, but you focused reality very, very well tonight, right? As we look at this, then the reality is, what does the town want?
Well, it's it's
Make
true.
it more public like
It's of
this.
course,
and-
very valuable to have a developer's, point of view,
Absolutely.
especially somebody with your history of the town. But every project that I've looked at, looking at these, I've mostly been focusing on the warehousing and things. It's all the public input is, we don't want it here. There's too much traffic. We want the farmland, and we want the golf course, and it seems like a developer comes in and says, this is allowed here, so let's do this, and then the rest of the town is like, wait, I didn't realize we could do this, and it's because nobody's paying attention until somebody proposes it. But when then come to find out so that's where this whole started, is I think we need to be limiting the size of distribution centers and
Oh,
warehousing.
and yeah, I'm not against that. I probably agree with you, but
Although at least this draft proposes allowing them in the northern commercial district where they're
Yes.
not currently allowed.
And I think it makes sense to allow them up there.
Right. So that is another use, in other words, proposed for that district that isn't allowed now.
I think what you have, right, this is the current, it doesn't have what
Right.
you had added. But it seemed like you limited some places and then opened it up in other places.
Limited it in the districts where warehousing is allowed by right. Limited it by size.
Yes. Oh, and I don't know if you all looked up at what the sizes of these things are, where we say 35,000 square feet or 150,000 square feet. Or maybe you would have a better idea of this too, but I found a couple of things saying a Walmart Supercenter is 215,000 square feet.
no, that super center, yeah, that's like 215.
Yeah. So obviously 150 is less than that. What else did this say? It said a grocery store might be around 40,000. Does that sound right?
Could be a little bit bigger, but yeah.
A little bigger. So to give you an idea of the sizes of these buildings.
Because usually when a grocery store comes, they don't want to be there by themselves. They
Right.
want two other stores with them usually. Like if you look at a Market Basket always has a Marshalls or one of the what do you
TJ
buy
Maxx or something like
pillows. You buy pillows and all.
Oh yeah,
Home
home goods.
goods.
Yeah, liquor store.
They have that type of stuff with them. So if you want to have that type of thing, it needs to be the 150 because they want more than just their store there.
And from what I'm hearing from general public input, that's not something that is wanted in town. And I think isn't it said large regional shopping type uses exceeding a footprint of even 20,000 square feet, and 20,000 square feet is not a lot
Small.
at all.
It's real small.
And that was not permitted in a lot of these zones. So,
This workshop kind of started where, granted, it was Amazon, but what don't we want here? You know, so what's here and what don't we want? But it's turning into, okay, now what do we want and how are we going to
kind of
support
like
it
we
if
need
it
to
comes?
reshuffle things,
Yeah.
I think.
Right.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah, it's like the property that I have across from the golf course on Albuquerque. I think that's a perfect mixed use. We have apartments, you can do something else with it, but you don't allow apartments in it right now. So anything in the northern commercial district should maybe have that so that you can do that. And I don't want it everywhere. I mean, I own basically from the power lines, all but one property, all the way down on the east side of 3A. I own from there all the way down to Romano's. There's just one property in there that I don't own. Or I don't own them all yet, but I have them all under agreement. So just time frames for them to close it. Like Warren's Auto Body, I have it under agreement. I already bought the house up front, and in April I close on the body shop and all that stuff, and then this house is a little bit later than that. So it's all set up to do that. And just where the rubbish company is the only piece that I don't have there. So now I don't want that everywhere, but I think because of the golf course and the driving range, that might be a good spot for a mixed use.
And I'd rather see mixed use than more townhouses, preferably. Like I'd rather at least see a little bit of something to offset the residential load.
But
But
if it's-
it changes a little bit of the character of the town too.
But it depends where, like, so the piece that I own across from Mel's, a mixed use wouldn't be any good there, but what do you put in there? I mean, when you look at your uses, the traffic counts aren't there for a strip mall. Then nothing's gonna happen there.
You need the people there to do the shopping underneath.
Yeah, so that's why I say that it's just where you're gonna be, and it's different areas through there, you know, and all the single-family houses that are there on the west side of the road at some, you know, there's an office there now for an accountant, but eventually those houses will go and someone's gonna develop and do commercial use in time. So it's really figuring out what you want, what the board wants. And I know that if you put out a questionnaire, everybody says, we don't want anything, we want all the town to stay the way it is. Well, that can't happen either.
Merrimack does have a mixed-use zone. It's far from perfect. I should say it's their PUD ordinance. So a lot of, if you go up GW Highway, a lot of what's been developed has been under PUD, and that does require mixed use. The downside is they've also struggled in some of those developments to get the commercial done. And they've gone back to the planning board and in some cases have successfully gotten a waiver from that.
Well, they have that in Bedford where Macy's used to be.
Yeah.
By Jordan Marsh.
Was that supposed to be a hotel or something and now it's
Where Whole Foods,
Apartments?
where Whole Foods is.
Yeah.
That development in there, that was, I mean, that's all they want to do is build apartments in there, because that was a mixed use. They got the apartments that are out and back, and they built some of them, but they want more because the brick and mortar movie theaters, I mean,
it was supposed to be a movie theater.
a movie
Right.
theater, a hotel, there was a whole bunch of stuff. And it's just not happening because they can't get people. There was gonna be not like like a Dick's, but it wasn't Dick's Sporting Goods. There was another sporting good company, like, I don't know, something, but it all fell through. I mean, and since the pandemic, brick and mortar is even worse because, I mean, you know, I don't know about you, I don't use it, but I know my kids and Jill, I mean, everything comes in an Amazon truck, it seems like. You know? I mean, so UPS truck or a FedEx truck, but
That's the hard part. It's like, this is what I would like to see there, but it doesn't mean, it might end up being one of those things where if we say this is what we'd like to see there, and then it just never gets built, is that a win-win? I don't know. Leaving it open for the public anyway.
But it's information that I think we're just gonna look at it better.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
I mean, you can do a little Googling around and see what, what are different types of companies looking for. Like if you look at, something like a CVS, which was in my head because I drove by the Walgreens and the CVS as I was coming up here with the both pretty recent, but they're pretty specific, on their criteria. They want to be at an intersection. They want a certain number of homes coming off of the street. They want to be in a major road, and they want, X thousand vehicles coming off that side road on that residential street. And that's why they're located where they are in Hudson, because they've got that traffic volume and they've got those intersecting streets.
Yeah, they have to hit people on their way home.
Yeah, the intersection of Albuquerque and 3A, that's not yet, but potentially that could have enough volume to get something like that there. But anything south of that, not enough traffic volume. And too hard to get in and out. They want easy access in, traffic counts or everything.
You get a dock in the box,
What is it?
convenient MD, something like that.
Oh, yeah.
But anything larger, you won't get a grocery store either.
No,
So where do we go from
There
here?
used to be a grocery store in town, wasn't
yeah,
there?
it lasted about 3 years, I think. We're small tubers. I was.
Yeah. Right.
It started out at the convenience store, and they had pretty much that whole building. And then they built that, and I want to say that was like in 77, 76, 77, 78. And it had only lasted like 3 years. It didn't, I'm not even sure it lasted 3 years. And went out of business, because back then there was only probably 1,000 people living in town when they built that. I moved in at Litchfield in 78. That's how I got married, and I moved in town in 78. And Jill's always lived in Litchfield. So.
I think it takes some time to look at the list. Having it, I think, in this form is great, but to really think about, I think there's a couple of things to think about. One, what doesn't make sense on this list at all, or in the zones that are shown, and what's missing. And, we've already thrown out a few things that we know we have in town now that aren't on the list because they've come in some other way. But, you raise commercial recreation. That's something that's not on the list. Or as we've said, self-storage and many, warehousing units, those aren't on the list. Should they be? And then what else is out there? I mean, what makes sense? Things are changing. I mean, like I notice nowadays you want to put daycare next to employment centers, but I notice we don't allow them in 2 of those industrial commercial districts. Does that make sense? There's a lot of things like that. I think that we could start to think through.
It almost seems like we need 2 scenarios. One if we get the infrastructure, and one if we don't. It almost
I
like
think
we.
the starting point is that we don't. I mean, what makes sense now?
I agree, we don't, but I
Um,
think this is, if it's going to happen, it has to start getting to other boards, maybe higher levels.
If it's going to happen, then I mean, I think if we really are serious about thinking about sewer, then we could certainly reach out.
Because it'll be a different,
Manchester
it'll
and
be a
see.
different list. Maybe, I don't know yet. That's why we have to explore this type of matrix
Right.
there.
My guess is that Manchester's MS4 improvements are expensive, so maybe there's an opportunity.
Because Kate, you just asked, where do we go from here now? So
Yeah, is
we
it?
can do like, if we do nothing,
do
with
we need to
infrastructure.
digest?
right, we get something. And then if later on something happens,
Well, I mean,
oh, there's
do
things are
we
running in
continue
parallel.
this?
Hmm?
Do people need time to digest, or do we want to start?
I don't know,
marking this
because
up?
I think, I mean, we have a vision, but it's still the town. The town's gonna,
You gotta get some input.
it's not just us as, you know,
Right.
subjects making a decision. I mean, we're gonna make a
don't think
decision,
we
bring open
could-
up to the public, which has low input, you know, you were on the board before, but
I don't think we could go to the public with, hey, we're making all of these changes right now anyway.
I don't know. I'm not sure yet. I'm not sure. I don't know about any, I'm not even talking warrant articles or anything yet because this is zoning, right? At this point, right? It's a public hearing, right?
This isn't a public hearing. This is just a workshop.
For now, yeah, we're
But,
starting.
I mean, if we want to do something for town meeting, there's certainly time. But this is the time to be talking about it for sure.
Or do we do like one area at a time? Maybe do the northern part first, might be easier. And we
Take it
could
piece
flush
by
out
piece.
some
Could we do
issues
that now?
there.
Like, I mean, because since we don't have anything else on the agenda.
But
can we-
I don't want to stall there because it looks like the potential is down here as well.
Well, I think, I mean, we certainly, I think there's a lot of interest, public interest, obviously, in preserving farmland. That seems to be the big thing right now. Warehouses, well, obviously, we've seen what happened with Amazon. We don't want that. So I think we basically, or, you know, the consensus is, or I should say the public consensus is, we want something that isn't that, you know, that big. And certainly I think it's, you know, reasonable to put some restriction on that. So those are the two things I think, you know, from what I'm hearing. There's also the possibility of what is the practical use in developing those parcels? And if we're going to be practical about it, and we have to look, obviously, looking at what Mr. Charbonneau was talking about, access and sewer, I think those two things are huge. But at the same time, also looking at what are the possibilities from a practical standpoint, what we see as something practical in terms of developing it. So that's just my.
So you're saying put the warehouse stuff in now just to. 'Cause
I
that's-
think. I mean, I think it's. You know, I think that's reasonable. I think you can do it. Certainly. And then, you know, if there's something to work from there, you know, to develop something down the road, work with that. That's just my thought.
If
So.
you take like the warehouse, the one that they want to build, it's probably one of the best places because you're never going to see it. You can't see it where it's going to be located. It's like that, was it LKQ or LQK, whatever? I mean, you don't even know they exist, you know, so why not have something like that?
Mhm.
But if it's right up on 3A or where everybody's going to drive by and see it, well, that's a different ballgame. And there's enough buffer with that LKQ and what this is. So you should be looking, I mean, to me, to let something like that come in, because if you get enough businesses to come in, like get people working here, then you can build a restaurant and it can survive. But right now, if you want to put a restaurant in, it really can't survive because there's no businesses during the day. So you need a population to make anything work, is really what it comes down to. So if you have a population of employees coming to an area, you can make something else work. You know, you can maybe be able to make a daycare work because people are dropping their kids off next to it. They go to work. That's usually the case. So it's really things like that. Now, I have, before I even knew you were doing this, I talked to Jay a few weeks ago, and I've actually have Jim Petropoulos from Haynes Swanson. They're putting together for different communities, what different of Litchfield, like Litchfield, and we're going to come in and talk. We'd like to come in and talk to the board about that, so that you can get for ideas. I mean, I'm not saying that's what you have, but because you know, we need to look at how we're gonna develop our land, and I'd like to have a master plan so we know what that is. And kind of your ideas on what you think you want to see there, and you hear our ideas on what we want to see there. But we think will work. So that's something we're working on. We're doing that, and maybe in August or something, if you can have another workshop, we can bring them in and discuss that. You know, so you get some ideas.
You can do that.
You know, just for that reason.
Yeah.
You know, Jay, we talked about a realtor or something, but I really couldn't find anybody that wanted to do the project, to do something like that and see what they want to sell the stuff and get it, but they didn't want to do the legwork to come up with the ideas. So I actually just hired the engineer to go, because he designs most of these and figure out what would go. So that helps. We're gonna try that.
So I don't think we can put anything forward as far as the warehousing changes that Jay had said without looking at the entire picture.
Mhm.
Do we need a formal subcommittee or something like that to do anything and
No
combine?
matter what, yeah, I think it
Could.
Or
if
just
it's
invite
not,
extra, make sure we get the word out to invite the public.
yeah, you're not gonna do anything until you go to, it's gotta go to town meeting anyway. It's gotta go to a vote, whatever you do, whatever changes you make, but you need to start now if it's gonna happen for them.
No, I think because we're talking about two separate things, because we originally just were looking at updating just adding warehousing restrictions and allowing it. I think we actually said that we probably would make sense to allow some in the northern commercial district. And then I went and did this chart because I didn't feel comfortable just changing that without getting a better idea of what each zone was meant for in the first place. And then now you're coming forward with even more ideas. So I think we need I think before we put I think town meeting, we focus on at least getting some warehousing things
Mhm.
into the zoning ordinances.
Mhm.
But we can't decide on what we would propose at town meeting without looking at the whole picture.
Okay.
We need to get this as like some kind of plan,
Mhm.
whether it's formal. I don't know how formal it needs to be or not, but
And I think
with
we
community
definitely have the
input.
opportunity to do another workshop. And maybe
Yeah.
this is something we just want to do a workshop, regularly
Right.
every month.
Yeah, we could do that. Certainly.
Yeah, that's what it take, a few workshops every month till you get there. That's what we did way back in the day.
It sounds like we need to do that again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's changed. Everything's changed in 30 years.
The plan has changed. The vision has changed.
You think you'll be ready in August? Because that's real quick.
Yeah, they've already been working on it for a
Alright.
few weeks.
So then the public's going to want to see that and factor that in as well.
Well, it's really, we're just gonna come in with all these different ideas and then the board takes it and what you like and what you don't like. I mean, you
But it's
know,
public, right? Everybody's going to see it.
but we still have time.
Yeah, we're televised as
Yeah,
we
I mean,
speak.
whatever. I mean, this year's flying by. It's going to be September, October. We need time. We don't want
We
analysis
do need time.
paralysis, but we need the public involved as
Right.
well.
Mhm. You have to have the discussion. So.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's very difficult if you ever think you're gonna get a lot of people at a public hearing to talk about this. We never could. I mean, people just don't show up. They may listen to it and they may comment and things like that on Facebook, whatever they do. I don't know. I'm not a Facebooker.
We'll get a lot on Facebook, which is good, right? That will spark interest.
Well, it works.
It
Unfortunately.
works
Yeah.
sometimes.
But you
Yes, it does.
only get like maybe 5 people to come though.
Yeah, but you
Don't
won't
have
get
100
many.
likes and
Right. Right.
5 people show up.
You won't get
Well, we
many.
only have so much capacity in here anyway. We're allowed,
Take this
so.
as a
Be
compliment.
lucky.
It's not going to sound like a compliment, but it is. Do you remember that movie Back to School with Rodney Dangerfield went in there with reality?
So, what is the
Very good.
absolute deadline to have amendments put forward for public hearing?
So I'm not looking at a calendar, but first public hearing is always early January.
Okay.
And usually we're voting at a workshop in December to put it to public
Public-
hearing.
put it to public hearing. Okay, so we'll say like first meeting in December, we want to be voting. And then maybe that'll give us an extra buffer.
Yeah, that'll give us a buffer.
Have fun at deliberative.
And, you know, just to be fair too, maybe we may want to get input. I know I'm a member, but maybe someone else, a member of the Conservation Commission, to come in and to talk, to look at this as well from their perspective. So that we have a good group of people that we can kind of look at things, and we see the development side, we see the conservation side, and how we can work to try to balance it. Yeah, just a thought.
Right.
I mean,
And we should talk about solar farms, just saying.
No, I mean.
Be on the
We
list,
should.
yeah.
You know, whether we like it or not, they're coming. And,
Yeah.
you know, no difference. There's farms. I have a hard time getting all my fields planted. So, you know, the one in the front, the cornfield is the only one that they want. They don't want the ones out back. So it's, and I mow them and take care of them, but, you know, not everybody's going to do that. And the farms, unfortunately, are going to go away. And when they do go away, do you want them just to turn up to like the back of this building where it's just all brush growing up? You know, I mean, does that look good? Or maybe.
Realistically, it would be built, something built.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, it could, but if the town, you know, I heard you say earlier, well, maybe the town needs to buy it for conservation. We don't take care of our conservation land right now. I mean, I don't mean that in a bad way. It's just only so many hours people are going to volunteer to do things. You know, it's just, it's what it is. It's, you know, it's a lot of work to keep the land up so that it's usable and just doesn't get all overgrown. So, you know, across from the library, that was a field that back not that long ago, that was a farm field. Look at it. I mean, you can't even walk through it. So they're just things to, you know, think about. It's not, I like the fields. I love the fields. I mean, as long as I'm breathing, there'll never be anything in my field. And I don't think after I'm gone, there will be either. But I haven't decided how I'm going to do that yet. But I believe that it's going to be a field forever. But
well, I think it would be a good discussion. I think having your perspective, having conservation's perspective, and working as, you know, in these workshops, I think we can figure out something that'll be very helpful. So thank you.
so can you set up a date for now?
We can. I don't know what's going on in August though yet.
So we've continued one hearing to the 3rd, but the next meeting will
Yeah.
be the 17th.
So it's usually the third week.
It doesn't
Tuesday.
tell me.
And
We could certainly,
so it's up
if
to
it's
the board,
open,
but
we can
could decide
certainly
to
do
a
that.
workshop
yeah.
on the
Yeah.
17th if we want to.
The third. I won't be here on the 3rd.
The 3rd Tuesday?
Yeah, I won't be. No, I won't be back till midnight on
The other
3rd.
option is the 3rd. Right now, we've got
Mhm.
a lot line adjustment for
Right.
the 3rd.
I can't make it on the 3rd.
August 3rd
Yeah, I can't.
or 17th?
I can make the 17th. I
Oh,
can't-
yeah.
Yeah, it's the
Yeah,
third
the
week.
17th was what I was saying. It would be, all
Oh, okay, 17th would be perfect.
Yeah. right, yeah.
Okay.
17th.
All right, we'll set that up then. We can put that in the schedule.
And I'll get Jim set up to come
Okay.
then.
Right.
Morgan may come. only just for his perspective, so you guys can understand, not that you have to do anything with it, I'm just. He handles a lot of these cases and he may give you an idea that works. He may, you may say, I don't want any of it, but it just really, it's a discussion.
Yep.
If you have a question, you can ask him and he's going to tell you the best of his ability. I mean, he's a pretty straight guy.
Yep.
And just so we can head in the right direction.
I like it. I think it's good.
So,
That sounds good.
Okay. Everybody good? Okay.
Yeah, I just want to hit on one thing that Jay had mentioned in
Yeah.
the very, very beginning, and then Kate, you said something with regard to the 150,000 square feet on the, you thought that was a little more than what you would like to see or something like that.
Oh,
That was for the southern
that
commercial.
was right. I was thinking the southern commercial and the southern commercial industrial should be significantly less than 150,000 square feet to limit truck traffic up and down 3A. Because realistically, they'd be going all the way up to the highway that way versus trying to get down through 102.
Right.
So I was thinking the larger warehouses we'd rather have concentrated up in the northern side, and then the southern side would be smaller ones. I don't know about a size, but maybe like you had said, I think we have that already where it's an accessory use
Mhm.
to like a retail place. So the main issues are always the trucking. The trucks driving up and down through 3A. So
Right.
trying to limit that.
but when you get in an industrial area, pretty hard to have an industrial area without having trucks or big enough building to maybe a steel fabricator or something like that, which needs a big roof to be under.
Right. I'm not so actually. Why is there a separation? Do you know that? Why there's a separation between southern commercial and then southern industrial? Is it just to keep the different sides of the highway?
Southern industrial was just so you could have a noisier use or a heavier commercial, a heavier industrial use like steel fabrication or something, manufacturing of something.
And that was when the circumferential highway was planned.
Exactly.
So, yeah, so that's what I'm saying is since that's not going to be there, I don't think we want those noisy,
Mhm.
big truck traffic. Well, I mean, if it's noisy in the certain area, it doesn't seem to be so impactful. It's always the trucks that everybody has a problem with. So,
But again, I think it's also the access issue as well.
Yeah.
Because,
no, I'm saying public response
Yeah.
to something being built.
Yeah, when the industrial part was put at the south end, it was all because of circumferential.
Mhm.
That's never, well, never say never, but it doesn't sound like it's ever gonna happen. So maybe you wanna take a heavy industrial use out.
I'm not. We might.
Yeah.
I think that's why we need to look at before we just say no warehouses here and some warehouses here and this size here. I think we need to get an understanding of what do we really want, or how are these areas really expected to be used,
Right.
realistically.
Okay, I've taken up enough time. See you on the 17th.
See you on the
Thank
17th.
you.
Have a good night. Thank you. Good night.
Okay. This isn't. I had another question about zoning board stuff.
Okay.
But if you want, I didn't mean to like take over either.
No.
Just continue the conversation.
I'll go. This is, it's workshop.
Well, I'm not sure if it's part of the workshop or not. It was about, we got an email from the zoning board about Barron's. Was that for specific people's responses or did they want the planning board as a whole to respond?
By the 17th, right? That's the one that
Yes.
said by the 17th.
See that?
I think I saw that.
Oh,
Came about 2
yeah,
weeks
yeah,
ago, I
yeah,
think.
yeah. I think you're right. Yeah, there was something.
See if I can find it.
Oh, is this it, the special exception 25-day notification?
Who's it from?
It was on,
Troy Brown, to Planning Board, Conservation Commission, Health Officer.
What date?
no, it was
It was a
June
female's name.
16th
Yeah.
from
16th?
Donna Barrow.
Yes, I think
Donna
that's,
Burrow.
This Laura Gandia of the zoning board asked me to forward this application to you and have comments into her by the 19th of July.
that's it. I think that's it.
That was it. And I wasn't sure if she was looking for a full board response
Hmm.
or just wanted input from members.
Yeah.
But we
When
don't-
was, what was the date again?
We don't have an actual
June
plan
16th.
to give her.
June 16th? Oh, here it is, Barron's, Laura Gandia, okay. CBA asked to forward this application, comments to her by the 19th of July. Yeah,
But we don't have a plan, right? It's still conceptual.
I mean, or ordinarily the planning board doesn't. Outside of specific language.
yeah.
She forwarded it's the zoning board's application,
Application for the variance.
but
See it?
oh, I mixed up my days. I thought we had another meeting between now and then. She's asking for
This is for
input
the
by-
variance application, right?
Mhm.
Yeah,
Conservation had a walk on that property afterwards, right? Like a couple Saturdays ago.
they did, yes, that's my understanding.
Lots of ticks.
Oh,
Lots and lots of ticks.
Yeah,
Six.
I heard that actually.
Shoot, I'm sorry. I I would have responded and asked this question over email if I thought we had I thought we had two meetings before that July
Yeah.
19th date.
There was a letter in here to the Conservation Commission. A copy of this letter requesting review and comment from the Planning Board, Conservation Commission in accordance with the zoning ordinance.
Well, our existing northern commercial allows warehouses.
Mhm.
According to the matrix here.
Not the northern commercial.
That's what I say, northern commercial industrial? I'm looking at warehouses.
Yeah, commercial industrial, which is different than.
Oh, she's in northern? Oh, she's just in northern. Okay, I got you.
There's a couple of things here about traffic impact. And really the application for the
Right there.
variance and, you know, the criteria for the variance. I mean, I can send this to you, Jay.
Okay,
Certainly.
yeah, I mean, typically the planning board would not weigh in on.
Yeah, I don't know why it was addressed to, but that's what it says on here. I don't know.
Especially since this is, a case that could come to the. planning board.
Exactly,
Mhm.
yeah. But I'll send it to you just the same. Okay.
It sounds like we shouldn't.
Yeah,
push
I mean, I'm just gonna send it to Jay.
Okay.
And if he wants to review it, he can. I'm not really gonna get into the specifics of it until it
Mhm.
comes before us if it does come before us as a site plan or whatever. So, but that was just what the email was. So. I know it was also directed to the Conservation Commission as well, and I know that they did have a site walk and comment. I think they may have made some comments and stuff. We'll see what happens with that.
Next time I'll respond earlier. Just got behind.
But a good thing you did remind me of that because I completely forgot that was in my box. Okay. back to reality. Mm. Okay. So anything else on zoning and regulatory changes? Do we want to continue this for the, obviously for the 17th? I will reach out to Conservation Commission and see, to Matt, the chair, and see if he's interested in having someone from the commission here on that date as well.
Real quick, along with what Kate was saying regarding industrial and commercial, I
Yeah.
quickly just pulled some stuff up. You're probably accurate on the southern com industrial and removing the industrial, because reading this right here, it says examples include factories, power plants, and storage facilities. Facilities that are less frequented by the general public is what the industrial would be standing for. So that would basically be like what they would be doing, you know, mining the land or doing something that's not public use. And I don't think you're going to want that section of town to be potentially used for industrial, because it also brings in the environmental burden and the human health impact. So
Sure.
I think it's definitely something we want to consider having removed.
I'll bet most people have no idea that land's industrial.
No,
I
not at all.
very much doubt
That would probably raise more stir than the issue with the farming on 3A.
Is there anything on it now next to 3A? It's
I
empty.
bet you it was probably coming from when they were talking about the highway coming through and making it easy access for the plants and stuff. Yeah.
Are there homes on the other side of 3A on that?
There's a couple of homes scattered. There's the new self-storage units there. You know,
Right.
there's the ice cream place.
Where is the new self-storage place on there? Because it's interesting. It actually says in here, industrial zoning is storage units.
So we have to make sure if that gets removed, that they're grandfathered in because, you know,
I think
we're
it's right
switching
here.
their land
think it's
use
right
on
here.
them.
Yeah.
I mean, or we just specifically allow,
Storage facilities.
yeah,
Right.
self-storage.
That's what I'm saying, because you have licks over there, right?
Yeah.
So we gotta make sure that if we're just taking away one, if all of their contracts have that other, we're based on
Right.
that being industrial at one point, because it looks like they differ.
Yeah, because
Right.
as of right now, it's permitted. If somebody
Yeah.
were to come in here.
That's right.
So I just want to make sure if they have a P here, you know, and they didn't in the southern commercial, we just want to make sure it's brought in.
That's right.
That's all I'm saying. We gotta look
Yeah.
what's there now.
Right.
And it's also just kind of worthwhile now that it's in everybody's head, as you're driving around, look at stuff.
Yeah.
I didn't realize there was that much
Yeah, I mean,
land,
you know,
develop- what happens.
potential developmental land. over
looking
there.
at that, but
Right.
just also looking at different types of commercial uses that are out there. You know, what is being built?
Yeah.
There are things that nobody's doing anymore. You know, we probably
Mhm.
won't see another movie theater, but there are things that are getting built and developed. What are they?
And the town might say we don't want anything. I'm just trying to
Yeah.
play both
Right.
sides here. If they say,
Absolutely.
they could
Yeah.
say the only thing that can go there is whatever, pick A.
I mean,
and-
the developers are correct. You're going to either get businesses in there or they're going to try and get more housing in there. And you get more housing in there, you start getting multi-units in there, you're still going to have a lot of traffic. And I mean, that's one of the things we've already been discussing with a little further down 3A in the community that's going in there. So there's going to be stuff that's built in there. And I think the people in the community need to understand what's going to be the better option.
So
You know, if you
then-
bring in daytime traffic, then you can have restaurants, you can have
Right.
local businesses, and you can bring that type of stuff in. Whereas if you don't bring in the businesses for the daytime traffic, you're looking at Litchfield as an overnight community, and that's what it is. People come to the community, stay for overnight for sporting events, but during the day it's empty because everybody's working somewhere else.
That's what I'm saying. We need
But also
two
bring jobs into
scenarios.
town.
We almost need two scenarios for the public to say, where do they want the town to go?
Yeah.
Oh, that's because
But, you know, in 8 months, we don't want anybody coming in and kicking the door in because we're not ready either, but because it's a very different
you
one.
very well might not see a lot of interest in multifamily either.
Yeah.
So it's-
Yeah.
point.
It's tough though to just tell people we're not going to develop any land though.
It's tough.
You know,
But that's good insight because I didn't calculate the traffic. You're still gonna have that.
You're gonna
issue.
have
So
you're gonna-
scenario one, you're gonna have residential. This
and
will
the other
be-
thing too is
Scenario
when
two is
you
this.
bring in residential, and not that families are burdens, because you know families and communities are good, but you do have a school system that's going to have more children, that's going to have more kids,
Mhm.
you know, that you're going to have a burden on with school systems that might not be able to handle the capacity that they're already at. You're going to have that. You're going to have other infrastructure that we might not be planning for. So, I mean, you bring a business in, sure, you're going to have more people coming in during the day, but at night there won't be as many people. You won't have the school systems burden. You know, the fire departments, the police departments won't be as burdened with the amount of calls that they have overnight. I mean, most fire departments will probably tell you most of their residential calls are at night because people are home. So,
I have this, I'm not going
There's
to
a
name a
burden there.
person. A citizen had told me, why don't we put a moratorium on the town? He goes, they said that they had done it before in this town. Stop growing so we can see what we have. Just saying, somebody had mentioned
There
that.
was, yeah, there is one, and it said it. I think it was something like it hasn't been renewed.
Growth
in the
management
back.
ordinance.
It was in the zoning ordinance, yeah. It
Yeah,
said,
there was a
Yeah.
growth management ordinance for many years.
and then it said unless this is renewed by this day, and that day was, I don't know, 10 years ago or something like that.
I'm just saying, that would be a tactic to, get this organized with the will of the public of what they would want.
how often are things like that done in communities like this, where they actually just say, "Hey, we're not going to," because I mean, right now the market is really hot in selling houses and buying and building property. So you just run into that. Now you're looking at a
Mhm. Oh, yeah.
financial,
An economic issue.
yeah, economic impact. You know.
The growth management at this point is really hard to justify.
Yeah.
There are interim, like emergency zoning that you can do. I haven't looked at that statute in a long time, but there is a statute.
I just don't know if us not wanting to have a warehouse come into a town is
Probably not.
substantial enough to say, well, we've got a problem here, you know?
Well, I think it was more meant towards residential,
Yeah.
not industry.
Well, obviously, in the case of Hudson, I mean, you had it abutting a residential neighborhood. So that's why people were up in arms because it was right. Yeah.
They were
Oh, right.
People who currently about a golf course.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, when we were talking,
Horses.
we were just talking about, the golf course right there in Albuquerque, and all that went into my head was right across from the golf course is going to be a big warehouse on that corner right there that's not being used. And I'm thinking to myself, not really sure if people are going to want that coming into that area, you know?
Well, what's happening in more populated areas is they buy the houses and they buy like 5 blocks worth of houses and just tear down all the houses and build it right in the middle of everything.
Mhm.
So yeah, like you said, it's possible somebody could buy a neighborhood and up in the industrial, in either the commercial industrial areas and do that if they wanted to.
Right.
If they really wanted to. You could one of those houses by the end of it, if you hold out long enough, you'll probably get millions for your
sure.
house.
Sure.
But yeah, eventually, they squeeze you out.
Because you get tired of the headlights in your living room.
That's basically it. Yeah. So.
Okay.
is that it?
So I guess what do we want to see for next time? And we're going to have a conversation, I guess, and with
Yeah.
these folks. And do we want to do anything, plan anything for next time or for the workshop?
I can update this with your warehouse things.
I can do that. I'll
Yeah.
put that in and I can do that. And if there's a consensus around it, I can also amend this to reduce at least the square footage in the south. Feels
Oh,
like there
okay.
is. It's a draft. but
Right. You can.
I think I could certainly do that.
Where can we get access to those maps that show the zones and maybe have them identified a little bit better? Maybe even put something like that on
I could just
a
send
public forum.
I could just send everybody a link.
Is that
Yeah,
on
if
the
you could.
town?
Sure.
Is that on the town website?
I know it's on. Yeah, I know it's on the NRPC's website.
Yeah.
Broken down by zone.
The website's not up to date.
I usually use the
Traditional zones don't exist anymore.
Well, we can send everybody the best link.
Is
I'll send everybody a
MapGeo?
link that I think is a good one because if you go on if you really want to play around with the Map Geo site, that's actually really nice because you can zoom in on every property in town.
Okay.
Oh, good.
Yeah, that'd be
And,
nice.
that's just kind of a nice way to do it. You can do all the different data layers. So you can do the satellite image
Oops.
to help you
I
see what's
actually have
really
it.
there.
I have a tab. But yeah, this is it. Oops. Hang on.
Does Joan usually update the website or?
It's John Brunel, I believe.
I thought
Um,
when I looked at our
Well,
new
slow,
open
but-
space
like,
development
it goes all the way, so
definition, we just
And you can
passed, it
see, you
wasn't
can
up
like
there.
click here and
Probably
No.
not. I don't know.
You know, the new open
Say,
space.
okay,
thing that
this is the
was not that
lot,
long
and
ago.
it's in
I don't
this
think it's up
zone.
online.
Have all these layers here.
I'll double
You
check
could,
that too.
because I think that's
Turn
gonna
on
be,
and off.
coming up in.
I know Joan has it because I gave it to her.
That might be coming up in
I'll send- actually,
future,
since I have it in-
Yeah.
Cases.
I don't know if this link will work, but
Sometimes it takes a little time to get it up and running.
Right.
but I understand.
Do you want me to email you that as a reminder to?
Wouldn't hurt.
Okay, that's
but I
okay.
will.
So open space definition, and what's the other one? You wanted an updated zoning,
Zoning map.
zoning map. And I'll CC John Brunel. Where do you want the map put? Where on the, if it goes to the planning board website? What do you want?
It's probably under planning board.
Yeah, I would, yeah,
I'll just take a look. at
somewhere,
one of-
yeah. in there, I would assume.
And then the open space definition, that was in our zoning, right? Was that a zoning ordinance? I think.
Well, yeah, I mean,
I
we
think
updated
online
that. We
it's like
updated that whole section.
2010 or
So.
something.
Right,
It's old.
yeah.
So that just means that the most recent version of the zoning ordinance isn't up.
Isn't
Real old. It's real old. Okay. Zoning ordinance. Okay. So I'll send you
Okay.
that.
Okay, we're gonna move on. Thank you, everybody, for conversation. I think it was a very good conversation to start. Thank you, Jay, for doing that, and thank you, Kate. Great job. The spreadsheet. Committee reports. Any reports of any committees? Do you have anything?
I do. So I'm reading something that's about 2 weeks old when I was at the Board of Selectmen, but let's see how relevant, maybe a week and a half. First of all, the next Board of Selectmen meeting is on Monday, July 12th at 6:30 PM here at the Town Hall. The next NRPC meeting, National Regional Planning Commission, will be Wednesday, September 15th, 2021 at 7 PM, 30 Temple Street, Nashua, New Hampshire. So when I gave the Board of Selectmen an update for NRPC, Michael, you were there. So if I forgot anything, please feel free to, and obviously you were there running the meeting. I told the board that the highlights for the 3 months were you had set up a 501c corporation to be able to apply for private grants because NRPC works off public money.
Yep.
The 501c would now allow private money to be brought into NRPC, and its mission statement is to support NRPC. All right, so comments around the roundtable from the 13, us and the other 12 towns, so 13 towns in the national regional area, comes into play tonight. Many towns during this boom. One, they're reviewing their land use laws, finding they are ambiguous at best. They are working on transfer rights or rewriting their land use code laws to reflect their master plans. They are noticing divisions in their towns of the new people moving in versus the older people that were there. Their towns are becoming fractured. Litchfield is already reviewing their land use laws. A trend worth noting, which is a cycle. Hudson may transfer planning board from appointed to elected. Amherst just transferred their planning board from appointed to elected.
Mhm.
Pelham 4 years ago, planning board went from appointed to elected. I don't know about the other towns. So I asked, why do they go from appointed to elected? And usually it's a project that is divisive, causing this, like
Hence-
Amazon. So the cycle is you go from appointed to elected, then over time the elected gets very political, and then it goes back to appointed. So Litchfield, I don't think is there, but I just wanted to notice some trends. That
It
we
was,
were
well, it was very interesting to see how many towns shifted. Such a-
Yeah, it's saying
it was
it's
like,
a-
wow,
did
okay.
they say what spurred the other towns?
Yeah, I think Amherst was another project that
That
caused a problem.
Molly- or was it that-
Amherst actually got hit with more than one at once, but
Okay.
they were large open space developments and it led to a really swift reaction.
So what happens was they didn't redo their zoning.
Oh, no, they did it
Before the
properly. They
stuff
were
came
trying to
in.
set a good standards. It's the public did not want it.
Yeah, I mean, the planning board in Amherst spent a lot of time crafting their ordinances. It's just people don't realize what the ordinance says until they're confronted with it. And it
Right.
just happened that there was a couple of big ones. They got very controversial and the people who were opposing them organized and took it beyond just those developments. They wanted to see change. So they got a lot of change. They got an elected planning board, but they also got the ordinance repealed. There were like a bunch of petition warrant articles at that time.
Mm.
Pelham was the same thing, controversial development. People got angry and got petition warrant articles together. That's exactly what happened in Hudson.
That's yeah. That's interesting.
So I don't think Litchfield is there for that. There's a building boom. Mount Vernon, quiet over town over near Leidenborough, I believe. Homes are close to $500,000. Pelham homes are selling for $570,000. Merrimack, in the northern part of town, 120,000 square foot warehouse is going in. Another warehouse of 100,000 square foot is going in. In the southern part of town, 160,000 square foot warehouse is being added to an existing facility. Something about a golf course, I think they called it golf balls, is up for sale.
Yep.
Apartments going in for the elderly and other residents, and it was their 275th anniversary. All right, Nashua, approval of many businesses has occurred. Approval of hundreds of housing units approved. I don't know if that's apartments or houses or both. Their strategy is to go into underserved areas and build them up. I think they said they were working with their conservation group to improve a better experience, but I really wasn't sure what that was going on there.
Yeah.
As far as Hudson, I believe the Board of Selectmen at the meeting said that there are 2 appeals filed for Amazon. DOT was not helpful. It's not over yet. Whatever, they're going elected instead of appointed. That's interesting, going the other way, right? I like the presentation. Yes, I'm saying it on sidewalks. More bike paths, I think. I don't know if the statistics are right, but you get the point. If you're hit by a car doing 20 miles an hour, I think you have a 10% chance of dying. 25 miles an hour, I think it's 25% chance of dying. And if it's 40 miles an hour, 85% chance of dying or not doing too well. So we know Route 3A and Albuquerque are 35 and 40 miles an hour, but somebody getting hit is really going to be detrimental.
Yeah.
So keep out. I think we should see that sheet. I think it's 1,000 words when you look at that graph. That's what I had to report for NRPC, and that's all my committee reports.
Okay. Conservation met last Thursday night. I was not at that meeting, but there certainly the Conservation Commission has a lot of stuff going on with a new chair and a new board, sort of, some new members. So should be interesting to see what plays out with that. The Lower Merrimack Lower River Advisory Committee, it's time to renew my appointment. So I got a thing in the my email, and I just dawned on me tonight. I've got to fill it out and send it in. So I will do that. We haven't had a meeting, so we heard much from those folks. The Capital Improvement Committee meeting is July 19th here in Town Hall. Although I thought I did see an email. You're right. I did see them, but I don't know if that was
For real.
where it said, yeah, for real, or if I was just, it said canceled, but
The WebEx portion.
the WebEx, that's what I was thinking.
Oh,
Because
all right.
they were going back
Okay,
to
Tim-
public
oh, got
meetings.
it, got it.
That's why I was,
I
yeah.
wondered too.
So I
Okay.
can't dial in to hear it because I'm going to be
You'll
away.
have to watch on TV.
Okay.
And it's going to be
I wanted to
at,
go.
Okay.
ZBA meeting immediately following.
Oh,
Oh,
Yeah.
interesting.
The room's double booked that evening.
Wow.
So, just
Okay.
for your awareness.
Talk quick.
all right. Very good. Okay. And I think that's it for any other business. The approval of the June 15 minutes. Did anybody have an opportunity to take a look at those? Have any questions or concerns?
Yeah, I just have one change. Kind of funny. It's a funny one. Let me go to it. It's where we're talking about our committee reports down at the end. When I talked about the Strawberry Festival. I think think they said, let me just find it. Joan had said Strawberry Festival drive-through and Historic Society yard sale. It was, it should say Strawberry Festival drive-through and the Historical Society will be selling their wares. It wasn't a yard sale. They were selling their hats and their Crocs and all
okay.
that kind of thing.
Okay.
That's the only change I saw.
Great. Any other questions about the minutes? Anybody have any comments? If not, I'll entertain a motion to accept them as amended.
So moved.
All right, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor of approval of the June 15, 2021 minutes, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Abstained? Motion passes 5-0-0. Thank you. Okay. Jay, do you have anything else this evening?
I do not.
Okay. Does anybody else have anything else? No? Okay. All right. Since there is nothing other business this evening, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
You have a second?
Second.
Discussion? All those signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Abstained? Motion passes 5-0-0. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. I hope you had a wonderful 4th of July, and we'll see you on the 17th.
Third.
I'm sorry, the 20th of July. I'm thinking ahead to August. I'm sorry. I'll let you enjoy your summer. Sorry.
17th.
I know, I'm going too fast. Yes, the 20th. Have a good evening. Thank you.